Hello, everyone. Happy Black History Month and welcome back to Vegan with Jen. Today, we are doing an interview with Deitra Dennis, who is a registered nurse and national board certified health and wellness health coach who has a heart to help others live at their optimal health. She has gone from nursing care from the bedside to the sidelines as a health coach and the table side as a nutrition and cooking instructor. Deitra's new journey is one of dedication to educate and empower her clients to sustain a healthy lifestyle. So welcome to the channel, Deitra. I'm happy that
Thank
you're here.
you. I'm glad to be here.
And I've actually worked with Deitra professionally. We worked on the African Heritage Power Plate, which we're going to be talking about later. And I just want to say personally that I know Deitra is a passionate woman who cares very deeply about her community and does a lot of work in helping to tackle barriers to healthy eating in the African American community. So again, I'm so happy that you're here, and it's always wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you. The same here, Jen. Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. All right. All right, so let's get started.
Okay.
Before we get to all the incredible things that you're doing, I want to start with your personal diet journey. So tell us about the diet you had when you were growing up.
Okay, so being a Southern girl, I am from Macon, Georgia. And if you're not familiar with Macon, it's about 150 miles from Atlanta. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Richard Penniman, the late Richard Penniman, or you may know him as Little Richard. He was from Macon. So that was hometown for me. So being a Southern girl, we had, meat on our plate, but I can truly say just about everyone in my family had a garden. So we always had fresh vegetables, but we did have meat on the plate. So, that was kind of the traditional diet for us.
So you had a lot of plant foods. You just also had the meat.
Had the meat, yes.
Okay. So when did you decide to try a plant-based diet, and what inspired you to do that?
Well, I have to go back a little bit because I started as a vegan December 1st, 2016, but I have to go back a little bit to kind of give you the backstory before we get to that. So when I was about 9 years old, my cousin at the age of 20 passed away. So I remember that day very vividly. My mom was on the phone and, I just saw her facial expression change. I'm like, oh, she's looking sad. What is going on? You never want to see your parents, upset.
Right.
So that's when she, shared that my cousin had passed away. And, I've always been observant and, just going forward, I started really looking at things at 9 years old now. I was looking around and I noticed that my uncle, he had diabetes and he actually went blind. He was a chef on a Porter on the Train, and he went blind. I had family members that had amputations, on dialysis. And I'm like, ooh, again, I remember verbalizing this. I have to do something about this.
At 9 years old? At
9, wow. And so from that, my journey, I, chose to go into healthcare. So I became a nurse. And then once as a nurse, again, observing like, okay, why are patients coming back? I thought we're trying to help them get better. And they are what we call frequent flyers. And so they were coming back. But one patient in particular really had a great impact on my life as well. So again, my cousin, going back 9 years old, my cousin was in her 20s. And then I had a patient in his 20s and he was morbidly obese. He was well over 500 pounds, really close to about 600 or 700 pounds. And, that young man, before coming to our unit, he was in intensive care and he was bedridden. They had wired his jaw shut and all of that, to really get him out of the critical state and really getting the weight down. Long story short, this young man, I worked nights at that time. As a new nurse, you usually work nights. Low on the totem pole for day shift. But anyway, during the time of caring for him, because he had, really comprehensive care, wounds and all of that kind of stuff. So while I was in the room with him, I took that opportunity to ask questions. it was coaching before I knew what coaching was, because I was asking him, not judging him, but how did he get to where he was? And then what was he going to do once he got home in order to make better lifestyle choices? And, fast forward, he discharged and we were all happy. He discharged to inpatient rehab. He had to learn to walk again, all of that. But when he discharged from rehab, this young man went back to his old way of eating. And I'm sad to report he passed away. When I heard the news of that, it was as if the, wind was knocked out of me, because I'm like, wait, this is a young man, now doesn't have life because of not being able to sustain a healthy lifestyle. From that point in 1998, I said, I have to do something different. And I didn't know what that was, but I knew I needed to do something to help people make a healthy lifestyle, sustain a healthy lifestyle. And so my journey, and I know for me, my path, I've always been guided on being in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, and being offered the best opportunities. That I know for sure. So in 1999, I relocated to Atlanta, the Atlanta area, because I said it has to be something different. And so in doing that, that was my journey, changing the trajectory of nursing from the bedside to the sideline and to the table side. So in 2001, I had the opportunity to meet a young lady who is my dear friend now, but she was able to reverse an aggressive form of breast cancer by going plant-based, as well as all the other lifestyle principles. Now, I have to tell you, at that time, I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can eat vegetables. We grew up on vegetables. Well, my love affair with cheese, I was like, you know what? I can still have my cheese. I didn't worry about drinking the dairy milk. I, immediately changed my intake of the dairy milk. But the cheese, I just couldn't let it go. I had to have cheese grits. Had to have cheese on my sandwich, cheese on my salad, just cheese all the way.
Yeah.
And so it is, as we know, scientifically, it is have addictive properties, so it is an addiction. So it was after that, I really did, let me rewind. I've always been a little chubby girl. I will say probably around 9 years old is when I really started, gaining a lot of weight. And it's just like, okay, if I'm going to help someone, I have to be it before I can do my life's work. So then I went on a journey. I said, anything that I do, I wanted it to be evidence-based, coming from a healthcare standpoint. And I wanted things culturally relevant. So, I went on a journey again with that. So in 2015, I was able to find the organization Old Ways, and they're a taste of the African Heritage Diet Pyramid. Had never heard of it before. Have you heard of it prior to?
No, not.
Yeah.
Not
and so I hadn't heard of it. Yeah. So I hadn't heard of it. And so had the opportunity to become an instructor. And before I started teaching the classes, I said, if I didn't hear about it, and I know I researched everything. And if I hadn't heard of it, I needed to get the word out. So what I started doing was, having cooking demos at health events, at schools, at churches. And then I had the cooking class. But I was like, I got to get the word out. And it was really how our ancestors ate. Our ancestors ate mostly plant-based. They only ate meat, for ceremony or celebration. It was not the star of the plate, And the three things that stood out to me in, the study is that they ate what was in season. They ate together, because it was always about a sense of community, and they ate local because they grew it themselves, or their neighbor or whomever, they shared the food. And so that stood out to me. So having those classes and had the cooking class at churches, I still felt like, okay, because the pyramid does have the meat on it, but, further study, I was able to find out that a totally plant-based way of eating really could help reverse a lot of the chronic conditions. Going back to age 9, saying I got to do something. I'm like, this is the answer. And so it was 2016. I had gone to a conference. It was Food for Thought conference. It was a farmers, and I always signed up for a cooking demo class, and it was a cooking demo. And it was a young lady teaching the class and really talking about food as medicine. And it was truly at that moment, another full circle moment, that it took me back to when I was sitting at my friend Donna's class, like, oh man, this is coming back to me again. So this is worth me exploring. And when I came home from the conference, I immediately looked up, how can I become a certified instructor in food as medicine? And what came up first was Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, Food for Life certification. I immediately applied, and part of the requirement is that you had to be vegan. And so I said, okay, well, this is it. December 1st, I haven't looked back. So I know that was a long story to where we are now, but I just had to give you the backstory of how I arrived at where I am today.
Yeah, no. I really appreciate the backstory. I can really see your journey, and you're so observant, and you kind of piece all of these things together, like what you're seeing around you and your family and the community, and then, the traditional diets of Africans, and then you're seeing, okay, now plant-based, and it all kind of ends to your journey, ending here with plant-based diets. Culturally relevant. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes.
And do you have other reasons for being vegan?
Well, like I said, the weight part, because I said, I had always, I would say 9, maybe a little bit before 9, because I was a premature baby. I was born 2 months early. So, early in my life, I wasn't overweight. It wasn't until later on when I started school, when I started to gain weight and just really had a challenge with weight. I'm like, okay, this again, for me, and just like as a nurse, if I am teaching someone something, I feel that I have to walk the walk and talk the talk and walk the walk. So I want it to be an example to people. And I always like to be able to experiment to say, okay, well, is this going to work, or what can I do to tweak it? Kind of thing. So that was a motivator for me, really.
Wanting to be
for my weight, to be an example.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, and I love that answer because usually when I hear about other reasons for going vegan, and including myself too, I usually hear after health, the animals and the environment a lot. But you're here doing this for your community, for people, to inspire them and show them how to overcome chronic disease through example, right? So that's beautiful. I love that. Do you have a spiritual connection to your diet?
Yes. And so even going back when I was doing all of this and preparing to make this lifestyle change, for me, I am believe in God. And I went to the Bible, and in Genesis 1:29, it clearly says that the plants were to be our food. And so I'm like, okay, if when you think of when you buy a car, you have your manufacturer's manual, and you follow that on when you should get your oil change or when it's time for a tune up or things of that nature. And for me, the Bible is that's our manual, because the manual helps you, number one, to have that car for a longer time so the car can perform at its highest and its best. This, to me, Genesis 1:29 shows us this is how you can perform at your highest and at your best, by eating the plants, because the plants have healing properties in them. They're phytonutrients, and which phytonutrients mean plant nutrients, and certain of the colors have certain healing properties, so that's why you want a rainbow of colors on your plate, because each color is providing healing for you. Again, going back to reverse a lot of those chronic conditions that our ancestors didn't have. They were the epitome of health because they ate, from the land.
Yeah. Right. I love that. And I know that our spirituality is so ingrained into our culture that really it is intertwined with how we eat. in our food. Yeah, so that's great.
Indeed.
So did you have any challenges going vegan once you committed to that for PCRM?
I'll tell you, I did not, because my why was very strong for me. And that is key, for anyone. Before you do the how, it's important to know your why. Have that strong why. Why are you wanting to make this change? For me, my why was first for me, because it has to start with me first. I wanted to be healthy, and I wanted to be an example for others. Then the second one for me, because it really saddens me when I see in the African, I'll say the African heritage community, especially in America, that we're leading in all of the chronic diseases. And my focus in my business is women, because I feel that if the women in the community, take on the change, they're going to make sure everyone else is well, because we are caregivers. And we want everyone, whatever we find, even as girlfriends, if we find something, girl, did you see this? Did you try it? We're going to do that. And so, but we're leading in all of these chronic diseases. And listen, we are great and powerful. We don't have to lead in the chronic diseases. How about we change that and we can lead in being the epitome of health again? And so that is my strong why. So if there, and people will say, and family, well-meaning, like, okay, come on, you can have that just one time. No,
my grandma's always like, one egg isn't going to kill you.
Right. I'm like, it's okay. I don't have to have it. I'm good with it, And but that is my why, because it is my desire. You know how the blue zones are those who live to be in their, to age 100 or above, because of the lifestyle. Why can't we have that in our community? Right. That is my strong why. So that's why I haven't had any challenges. Now, will I say, would I see or smell cheese? It's like, but it doesn't make me want to go eat it. What I'm saying? I'm like, okay, well, that smells good, but it doesn't make me want to go eat it, because again, I'm on a mission.
Yeah, and your why is so strong.
And for everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about having the motivation and your reason for doing it. Yeah. It's about the attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to know your why before you do the how.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about some of the specifics of your diet. Tell us about what kind of foods that you eat. And is it similar to how you used to eat?
Okay. So in this, I encourage everyone else to do. Find those things that are familiar to you and veganize it. And what we were saying when veganize it is just you're taking out the dairy or any meat, any animal product at all in it. So I always loved my mom and my Aunt Mary's collard greens. So it took me a minute to get them. Let me tell you, the first time I cooked them, I was like, ooh, nobody would want to eat this. I don't have a pet, but I'm like, even if I had a pet, the pet would send it back. So it wasn't good at all. So, I asked my mom and my Aunt Mary, okay, so what can I do to make it taste better? So I've perfected it now. So collard greens, I still love. And, fried chicken, we would have fried chicken. So what I've done, I use cauliflower, and I don't fry it. I put it in the oven and still get that crispiness, because it's the crunch is what you're missing, and the flavor, the taste, and things of that nature. Because listen, one of the things for real why I said I wanted it to be culturally relevant, because many times in our community, when you hear the word healthy eating, people equate that to, okay, it's going to be bland. It's not going to taste good. I'm like, listen, I'm a Southern girl still. Okay. And so food has to have flavor for me. So yes, I still use the same flavor. The flavors, the spices are vegan. So I still spice it up.
Let me pull up that picture that you sent me.
Okay. Yeah, that one that I sent you.
Cauliflower.
Yeah. So what I did with this one, good. Girl, it was delicious too. So that was my first time trying the jerk. So this one is a picture of jerk, cauliflower, rice and peas. So it was Caribbean inspired. And this was some steamed cabbage. So again, the colors. So normally if you have cabbage growing up, I know we just had cabbage. It didn't have all the colors and it was just the white cabbage or the green cabbage. But I said, okay, I want some color in there. So I had red bell peppers, orange bell peppers, yellow bell peppers, and carrots. So that was in there. And onions, of course, garlic and ginger. So that was in there. Rice and peas, again. I try to, adhere to a lower fat. So I know in the Caribbean rice and peas, they usually have coconut milk. So what I did, I used maybe like 2 tablespoons of coconut cream because, it still would end up being low fat. And the milk that I used was oat milk because it still gives you that creamy lusciousness that coconut milk gives you. So that's what I did with that. And the jerk cauliflower. So normally when you're cooking chicken,
and it looks like fried chicken.
So as a point of reference, normally you're dredging, and a dredge is, you're battering, creating a batter so that you can have, the end product like that. So normally FEB, like February, is what you would dredge. You would have your flour, you would have an egg, and then you have breadcrumbs. What I use though, and and we'll talk about this a little bit later, just how you evolve when you go plant-based. Just each year for me, things have changed to enhance my way of lifestyle. But I use the flour, I use the gluten-free flour. And then instead of egg, I used sour milk or what would have been buttermilk. So I used 1 cup of a non-dairy milk or a plant-based milk, and you add some type of acid. So 1 cup of milk, and then 1 tablespoon of an acid that creates your buttermilk. And then to give it, for this one, I didn't use it. I just used flour again. But for my crunchy fried cauliflower, oven fried cauliflower, I use cornflakes because cornflakes give you that crunchiness. But that's what I did there. And then baked, put it in the oven and baked it for about 20-30 minutes, and then took it out and then put the jerk seasoning on there, and then put it back in there a little bit longer and put it on broil a little bit to get the charness on there. So that was that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it looks so good. I mean, I don't think when people think of vegan food, they normally are looking at plates like this, right? So this is great. So what else do you use to flavor? So you mentioned jerk seasoning, let's talk about the flavoring. How do you season other foods?
Okay. So listen, in our community, we normally use Lawry's seasoning salt. Okay. So what I did, and everybody can do this at home, create your own house seasoning per se. Because when you go to a restaurant, they have the house dressing and the house seasoning. Well, create your own house seasoning, but you can use Lawry's as your guide. Because in Lawry's seasoning salt is onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, turmeric. And turmeric has healing properties because the curcumin in the turmeric is anti-inflammatory. So, hey, put that in there. Put just a little bit, because if you put too much, everything is going to be yellow.
Right.
And it can be salt-free, or you can put a little bit of salt in it. For that. And that's the house seasoning. And so I usually season with that, but any good foundation for cooking, what you want to start with, to really help with flavor, is acronym FASS. So fat, a whole fat. We don't want to do the oil, because oil, studies have shown, again, with evidence-based, showing that it has causes inflammation in the body. And it's processed, and we want to stick to whole foods. Okay. So a whole fat could be, like I did the coconut cream, like I mentioned to you, but again, keeping that low, not a whole lot, but just a little bit to give you that feel on your tongue, because that's what the fat does. And fat is a carrier of the seasoning and flavor. So you use a whole fat like that, or you can use a nut butter. Again, and I will talk about a little bit later how you can keep it low fat, but still use those nut butters, and avocado. And then you want to have an acid. That can be any of your vinegars, in any of your citrus, the juice. And when you use the juice, use the zest of that as well. You want to have sweet. Again, this is appealing to the taste buds on your tongue, right? Cause that party in the mouth and you dance in your feet. That's what we want. And so a sweet, and a whole sweet can be like date, a fruit, using fruit as your sweetener. And you may use maple syrup. Because of the intense flavor, you don't need a lot of the maple syrup. And then your salt. If you're not going to use salt at all, you can use like olives. Olives, have salt. Things that have salt in them. Celery seed. You can use that as a for your salt replacement, and that's really good. And then to enhance it even more, you want to use your aromatic. So the acronym for that to enhance it. So like I said, the first ones are foundation. To enhance it even more, you want to use the acronym HAS, herbs. Like cilantro is awesome in everything. Your aromatics, that's like your onion, your garlic, your ginger, and then your spices, dried spices. So there you are. That's how you flavor your food. Yeah.
Okay. So summary. So the foundation is
FASS, fast, if you want to say.
Fat,
and then
acid.
Fat, acid, sweet, salt.
Fat, acid, sweet, salt. Okay. And then the enhancer is
HAS, if you will. HAS, herbs, aromatic spices.
Got it.
And you know what? Okay. One additional one that we could add to the foundation is you. So we can say fast you, similar like FAMU, fast you. So the you is umami, and that's that savoriness that you would get from meat. And what you can use with that is like your soy sauce, low salt, low sodium soy sauce, or a vegan Worcestershire sauce. Those give you the umami. And mushrooms give you that as well. And I'll tell you the key for me, because I used to didn't like mushrooms, but the way I can eat them now, I oven roast them, because when you roast your vegetables or any of the food, it really enhances the flavor, and it has a better mouthfeel to me by oven roasting the mushrooms.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that was very thorough. so helpful. No, I really think that's going to help a lot of people who just have no idea how to get started and flavor their food.
Yes.
And then how do you come up with the recipes and choose your meals? Is it based off of what you used to eat, or do you look up more recipes?
Both. Okay. So my Aunt Mary, my mom's older sister, was to me who gave me the inspiration to cook. And my Aunt Mary actually just passed away April 8th, 2020. And my Aunt Mary was like grandmother to me, because my mom's their mother passed away and my mom was a baby. My mom was the youngest of the 10 of them. And so I didn't have my maternal grandmother. So my Aunt Mary was like that grandmother model for me. So many of the recipes are actually my Aunt Mary's, which truly came from my great grandmother. Granny is who we would call her. And then some recipes are from my dad's mom, my paternal grandmother. Her name is Nell. And and my mom, Nellie. So many of those recipes are from there. But then I try and search to see if someone else has veganized something already. Yeah. And so I kind of combine that along with things that I feel like, that might work well together. Again, using that formula, like what can I put in here to really make it flavorful? And so that's kind of how I come up with recipes. Really, the foundation is family recipes, and then how can I, really maintain that flavor, and then making it vegan.
Yeah, I love that. So you're not really giving up any.
No. And I'll tell you, this past Thanksgiving, again, this was our first year without my Aunt Mary. And I was like, okay, how can I bring her back to the table, being here with us? And so when I was little, she made, listen, when I tell you the older people, they were very resourceful, because for breakfast for them, they didn't eat like bread, like we would have a slice of bread, because that cost, you had to go to town to purchase that, but they always had flour. So they had biscuits for breakfast. And so whenever there was leftover biscuits, which they didn't have leftover that often because it was 10 children. Okay. Their grandparents raised them, all 10 of them. And so, but if they had leftovers, the biscuit became like bread pudding. So, you can use different things for bread pudding, but the biscuits were bread pudding. But one of the things my Aunt Mary did, she put peaches in there. So it was like a peaches bread pudding. So I made that vegan, no oil. It was delicious. I made, my granny, they said she used to make like grated sweet potatoes. In the Caribbean, they call it sweet potato pone. Listen, it's really a sweet potato casserole, but instead of it being smooth, it's grated. Listen, it was delicious. So my mom was like, "Ooh, this is just how Granny used to make it." So I mean, I knew, I was like, "Oh my goodness," because now I made it some time ago when Aunt Mary was living, and she, tasted it. She was like, "This is good, but I think you need to add molasses to it to really give it the flavor." Listen, I just put a little bit of molasses in there. It was a hit, and I made sweet potato biscuits. So that was what I made for the holidays this past holiday in 2020.
Wow, that sounds so good. That sounds so good. And I love that you share it with your family, and they're also like, "Wow, this is amazing."
But listen, again, going back. So when I became vegetarian, being all zealous, like, okay, I'm gonna help my family. Everybody's gonna eat healthy, and everybody's gonna live long. And so my first thing, don't try this at home, please. So it was Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is the holiday. You don't bring anything new. It's all tradition. And I didn't even ask Aunt Mary because Aunt Mary always cooked. When it was the holidays, it was just her thing. You come over just like a grandmother would. You just come, bring yourself, bring an empty stomach because you're going to have a lot of food. And so she, I've said, okay, I'll make some cornbread dressing. I mean, she made the bomb cornbread dressing. So I said, I'm gonna make cornbread dressing and take it home, and they're gonna love it, and they're gonna be okay, and they're gonna change and want to eat vegetarian. That didn't happen. Okay, so I took it home, and again, didn't ask anybody anything, just brought it. And so Aunt Mary tasted it, and she said, no offense if anyone calls it stuffing, because we call it cornbread dressing. And so she said, this tastes like stuffing to me. And what she meant, this ain't it. No flavor. This is not good. I was like, oh, my feelings will almost leave, okay? Because I was like, okay, I'm just trying to get cheerful. Okay, I'm just trying to help everybody be healthy. And so I said, okay, you know what? Let me put myself in timeout, have a conversation with myself, get it together. And, I had to say, she has been cooking much longer than you. Just ask her, what do you need to do to make it her cornbread dressing? Came back out of the room, came back. I said, okay, I know you said it tastes like stuffing, but what can I do to make it better? She was like, well, you're going to need eggs. I was like, okay, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that. But okay, yes, ma'am. And then she said, put some cream of mushroom soup in it. I said, okay, at that time, like I said, I was vegetarian. And so I put the cream of mushroom soup in it and did make it very flavorful. So now that I'm vegan, you veganize it. Only thing you need is to have, create like your cream per se, and you can use that with nuts, like cashews, put a little bit of water in there, blend it. You don't put a lot of water because you don't want it milk. You want it cream. You want it a little thicker. And then you put your roasted mushrooms in there to create it. And that, when I tell you cornbread dressing, now fast forward these days, like I said, they love my cooking now, but honey, no. So lesson here or message here, when you want to bring vegan food to a gathering with your family, at whoever the host, ask them, let them know, okay, I'm eating this way now. Is it okay if I bring this, to share with everyone else, or if they say, well, no, I'll fix it, then you get in there and prepare it together. Or, they may say yes. And, and they may say, no, I don't want you to bring anything. And you say, well, is it okay if I bring it for me? I don't have to share it. Can I just bring my own? Again, you want to be respectful of the host, because as a host, and I'm not sure if, this is how it was in your family, but usually this is how it was. When your grandmother or whoever the host was cooking, this is their expression of love. And so when you say no to them, it's like you're saying, okay, you're not accepting the love I'm trying to give you. So be respectful, at all times when it comes to this journey. Don't be the preacher trying to tell somebody, if they ask you, yes, have conversation with them about why you made the choice and how they can do it better. Not at the table, though. We want the table to be peaceful and a lot of love at the table. Afterwards, they ask you during the time of eating, can we talk about it after? We can talk about it later, kind of thing, because you want your table to be a place of love and peace. But yeah.
Yeah. No, those are great tips, because I know, going to family events or cookouts or get-togethers is always like, when you first become vegan. But that's a good idea.
You want everybody on board. You know what I'm saying? Because you know the benefit. But this is something that I had to learn. And I've never been one to force anybody to do anything, because I feel that if I share it, whatever it may be, if they want to learn more, they'll ask you. Don't force it. And then, you plant the seed, just plant the seed, and many times when I've gone to other gatherings, again, I just share the food, and usually my food goes first. I'm like, now what am I going to eat? But, you just share it. You continue to share. And I've been sharing for some time. And, it took time for people to say, okay, you know what? I really want to learn more about it now. Now that I see it has flavor, just plant the seed. And if people ask, then you share more. And be okay if they say, no, I don't want to go totally plant-based. But this is something I always tell everyone, even those that come through my classes, those that go through my coaching. Listen, we all can benefit by increasing our fruit and vegetables. Do you agree? And they'll say, well, yes. Well, can you do that? Add more fruit and vegetables, a whole grains to your plate.
Small steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, eating more fruits and vegetables is better than not changing at all. Right? Yeah. That's great. Those are so helpful. Really, really. I think that's a really big barrier. Going to the family events, and
it is.
And honestly, also just talking with your family about it. But I like your tips. So when you're going to someone else's house, you ask them respectfully, like, oh, do you mind if I bring something? You say they're eating this way in a non-preachy way.
Yes.
And you lead by example, and then let other people then ask you. And if they're interested, then you convert them.
The door is open because, hey, they've asked you, so then you can let it rip. Share it all.
Yeah. So has this diet been cost effective for you?
Indeed. So when you think about, I actually just did a class this week about grocery shopping on a budget. And so when you think about beans, okay, because we're going to have, and we'll get into the plate, but when you're building your plate with fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and beans. Those are very cost effective. When you think of a pound of, just say, black beans, is probably $1, a little over $1.10 or what have you. When you think of meat, it starts at $1.50 to $3 per pound. Now, I think we all can add to know you're saved. When you buy in bulk your whole grains, you're saving a lot of money. So yeah, my grocery bill, and I know many people say that eating healthy is expensive, but once you really sit down and do the comparison, prior to, and I like for people to see the example. Yeah, I can tell you all day, but let's really sit down and look at, And I'm talking about whole food, plant-based. I'm not talking about the meat substitutes and things of that nature. Yes, they are expensive because there is not a subsidy. There is a subsidy for the dairy and the meat industry, so they can keep the cost lower. That's not such a thing in the meat alternatives and the dairy alternatives. So yeah, it's a little higher. But when you eat whole food, plant-based, like I said, following the plate, your cost really goes down a lot.
So sticking to the whole foods and buying in bulk.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, are good tips.
Other tips too,
share
if you don't mind me sharing a little bit. So
yes,
when you
please.
think about, and I can say even growing up with my family, again, everyone had a garden, and those who didn't have a garden, we still on the weekends would go to the farmer's market and you purchase directly from the farmer. Buying local is very cost effective. So that was what we did. So if you have a local farmer, utilize that, or, have your own garden of things that you love. When it comes to grocery shopping, now I know I'm telling my age here, but on Sundays, we receive the Sunday newspaper. And in that Sunday newspaper are the coupons and all of the circulars, the sales that's going to be for, the grocery store. And so, listen, my mom, my Aunt Mary would be on a mission, on Sundays looking through, okay, that's on sale there. Okay, so we're going to go here, there, to and fro and get this because it's on sale. And whenever, there were sales on like the frozen items, they would stock up on that. And going back to the garden, so like with the beans, my Aunt Mary had the beans, and then I had one of my other aunts, she would have like cabbage and all of the greens, the collard greens, turnips, and corn. That's what she grew. And then my Aunt Maddie, she had, just about everything. And so what they would do with the beans is, I'm not sure if you've heard of this process of blanching. So what they would do, pick through those peas and ask the kids, listen, we had to do the shelling of the peas. You're like, my fingernails are green. And keep shelling those peas. If you want to eat, you shell those peas. Like, okay, well, I want to eat. So we would do that, and they would pick through those peas, and then they would blanch them. So like blanching is bringing up water to a boil. You add your peas in there and you cook them in that boiling water for about 5 minutes, not long. You just want to take that earthiness off of it, if you will. Do that, take them out and rinse them under cold water, or you can put them in an ice bath. Not long, again, maybe 10 to 30 seconds. Take them out. They will put them in the bag and it's in the freezer. So you can have those beans out of season, right? Because when they're in season, when I tell you, when you eat things in season, the flavor is just so different than when you purchase it out of the store, because it had to travel from somewhere. It has been from its source for a long time. So it's not going to have that, that flavor, really natural flavors that are in the food. Like for instance, collard greens. When I tell you, if you have collard greens that have just been picked when they're in season here in Georgia, the season for the greens are like the fall and winter, because this is what I learned from, my mom and my Aunt Mary and my grandma, is that when the frost hit those greens, they are very tender. They're very sweet. It's not bitter like how it is in the grocery store. Oh, it's so delicious. And so what they do is when it's in season, again, following that same process, they put them in the freezer so that when you can cook them off season, you can have them in the summer, and they still taste good. Same thing when you think about, and I know I've said eating in season quite a bit. So if you don't mind if I share a little bit about giving an example. So when you think of Thanksgiving, what normally is on the table? You normally have a sweet potato pie. We had pecan pie too, but anyway, that's another story. But I'll stick with the sweet potato. So sweet potato is in season again in the fall. It has that good flavor. In the summertime, when it's the cookout, you normally had corn. Corn is sweet, but if you buy it off season, it's not as sweet.
Yeah.
Even though the grocery store may sell it year round, doesn't mean that it's in season. Watermelon in season in July is very sweet then, but the grocery store sell it year round. When they're having it, then it really tastes just like water. It doesn't have any sweetness to it. So that's what I mean. When the food is grown in the time in the season that it is perfect for it, I guess if you will, that's when a lot of the nutrients are in it. Because if you overproduce, then it's not going to have that same nutrient quality nor the taste factor. It's gone because you've overused it. You know, yeah.
Okay,
so that's what I mean by that. I know. Forgive me. I'm talking.
No. I love it. I love everything you're saying. Okay, these are awesome tips. Thank you so much for sharing and all of your examples. They are great. Okay, so now you've been on this diet for 2 years?
No, 2016, December 1st, 2016.
Oh, right.
So,
okay.
4 years.
Okay,
4 now.
4 years. So how has your health changed? And I'm going to pull up the other photos that you sent me.
Yes. So, as I mentioned, I've been a chubby girl had been a chubby girl for a long time. So my highest weight, this picture on the left here is 2001. Remember I said I, had moved here and had met Donna, and I was like, okay, I'll go vegetarian, but I'm still gonna keep my cheese. My highest weight on the left there is 235 pounds, and I'm 5'7" and a half. Don't forget my half. And so it counts. And so I started vegetarian in 2001. 2008, this was at my niece's high school graduation. Really, there wasn't much a difference in my weight, maybe 5, if max 10-pound weight loss. 2018, after I had been on the vegan for 2 years, this was at 2018, the picture on the far right. That was when I had gone to my high school 30th reunion. And I was at that picture, I was 188 pounds. And so I was very happy to be at that weight because, from high school, they remember me as being a chubby girl. And so to be able to go to the high school reunion, and they were like, girl, you're looking so good. What are you doing? Again, that's the window. I didn't have to tell them anything. And they asked me, well, what are you doing? What did you do? And that was my opportunity to share. I just shared a little bit, this is what I'm doing. If they want to know more, I share more. So, and as of right now, today, I am at 175. My goal is to get to 165. So I have 10 pounds to go. But I can just say really the weight loss. And as I shared before, for me, it was important for me to be it before I could do it. And I love music, and the songs that really I used was The Woman in the Mirror, taken from The Man in the Mirror, Michael Jackson. I had to start with me and ask me to change my ways before I ask someone else to make any lifestyle change. So, that was very important for me because I have to be the example for, I feel being an example. If I'm going to talk it, I need to live it.
Right. Yeah. I love that. And I love the music reference.
Yes.
Yeah. This is also wonderful because you're basically telling me you found a way to eat healthy, to lose weight, but still enjoy your food, make it flavorful, cost effective, and keeping your traditions.
Amen.
It seems almost too good to be true, right?
Yes, but that it's that simple. I know. When I think about when you in times past, and maybe even still sometimes now, when people talk about eating healthy or eating vegan, sometimes it's a little dogmatic, and like you're forcing people, and again, many people feel like, okay, I have to give up all of my traditions of a way of eating, then that's going to automatically be a no. You're going to get a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
But to show people, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And for me, I feel like it's always important to lead with love, meeting people where they are, you know, that helps a lot. That
right. And not being judgmental and
indeed,
understanding,
no.
that it is difficult. And
It is.
if you
It
think that
is.
you have to give up your culture, it's not worth it to most people, right?
Indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but if we share that you can do
Mhm.
it in different ways that you might not see in the mainstream media,
Yeah.
it might be more appealing to other people.
Indeed. Yes. I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to talking more about what you do. And so now I know you switched from nursing to
Mhm.
starting your full circle health
Health
coaching.
coaching. Yes. Yes.
And you explained a little bit about why you made that switch.
Mhm.
What do
Mhm.
you do now as a health coach, and why the focus on, heart health for women
Okay.
of color too?
Yeah, yeah. And so actually at the time of this recording, that December 30th was actually, well, let me rewind. 2013 was when I started the business Full Circle Health Coaching LLC. And again, we're a health and wellness solution offering evidence-based and culturally relevant services, that are truly geared at heart health for women of color. And I have on my red pen here, the Go Red, because this is February is Black History Month, but it's also Heart Health Month. And the first Friday of February is always National Wear Red Day because 1 in 3 women die from heart disease. And that number is higher than any cancer combined. We have to change that. And especially in women of color, we are really leading in that. And that is why, for me, that is a passion. Again, my cousin, when I was 9, she died. She had complications of obesity. She had a heart attack. And so that, again, the motivator for that. But 2013 was when I started the business, but I was still working full time as, in the nursing profession during that. And so it wasn't until December 31st, 2020, my position was eliminated. I wasn't working at the bedside. I was doing managed care, working in the health insurance industry. And so my position was eliminated because our company was acquired. So I had always said I really want to do my business full time. So here I am doing it full time. But the services that I offer cooking classes, my own, which is Back to the Root. So one of my nutrition and cooking program is called Back to the Root. And again, going back to the way our ancestors ate, going back to the African heritage food ways in order to uproot or root out the chronic conditions. And we have evidence that show by eating plant-based you can. And so I offer that. I also, because I am a certified Food for Life instructor and an ambassador of African Heritage and Health with Old Ways, I offer those cooking classes as well. My coaching, what I offer there is truly the entire lifestyle change or lifestyle transformation. And that is really going through, the physical activity, the rest, because it's important for us to get rest. I know many times we run and do a whole lot of things, but it's so important to allow the body to rest, to heal itself, at night. In the environment, getting enough sunlight, going outside to breathe the fresh air, that is so important as well for our health. The stress reduction. Yes, life happens. I mean, and I can share a little bit about this again. I know I keep telling stories, but for a year and a half, well, my Aunt Mary, like 4 years prior to her passing, she had a fall and, she went to rehab and things of that nature, but she ultimately ended up being bedridden. And so for the last year and a half of her life, we really had to care for her. And so I had to go home on the weekends to help my mom and my cousin with caring for her. That was stressful. My job at work was very demanding, but I still, had to make sure that I took care of me, make sure my stress level was managed. So that when I showed up as a caregiver, I showed up again in a space of love and not being exhausted. And so that stress reduction, yes, life happens, but learning how to make sure you take time for you, starting your morning off with prayer and meditation or whatever spiritual practice that you have, making sure you're getting that rest, drinking enough water, so that you, again, during those life circumstances, that you're able to, like I said, with that car, your car goes through a whole lot, but you make sure that you're doing the necessary things for it to run properly. The same thing with your body. So that was the other part. And then the social connection. It's important to have social support when it comes to living a healthy lifestyle, being at your optimal weight. As you see from the two examples that I shared, my cousin and the young man from the hospital, they were overweight. And as a result of that, had a lot of chronic conditions and ultimately, led to their demise. And then the other part is the nutrition, eating whole food, plant-based. So those are the things that I coach people on. And again, meeting them where they are. And really, for me, I always like to start a coaching session off on a positive, not what went wrong, but what were your successes? Because we don't celebrate even our minor successes enough. A minor success is still a success nonetheless.
Right.
Celebrate that. And as you celebrate that, you'll have more things to celebrate and to be grateful for.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
All right, so you have 3 cooking nutrition classes.
Yeah.
You're back to the root.
Yeah.
Food for Life with PCRM, and then African Heritage with Old Ways.
Yeah.
And then if you want to do more than just nutrition, we go to your health coaching to learn about all of these lifestyle factors.
Yes.
I love it. Okay. All right, so we had so many great things to talk about. I decided to split this interview up into 2 parts. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about Deitra's story, and please watch part 2, where we discuss the African Heritage Power Plate resource that we created in collaboration with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and Old Ways. I will link you guys to the second video and see you there.